Talk Tuesday, Brad thought there was a good chance that Congress would resolve the issue of furloughing meat inspectors as announced last week. And Wednesday, the Senate approved the move of $55 million from a USDA school maintenance and equipment fund to the Food Safety Inspection Service. The House passed the resolution Thursday. It now moves to the President. If passed there, the furloughs would be avoided. The other three issues we discussed with Brad are still in play and could have a noticeable impact on the beef producer.
Well, it's interesting. We can think of the beef industry in general, and we think of livestock actually in general as a sector that doesn't really look too much at policy, sort of looks to avoid policy issues oftentimes, but yet there's a number of policy issues here affecting the beef industry. Right now we have the issue of budget sequestration and the potential impact on meat inspection. We also have a recently announced proposed rule from USDA to address COOL, country of origin labeling, and to address the complaint and the ruling from WTO that was originally filed by Canada. We have continuing issues with disaster assistance and lingering concerns obviously over drought outlook in 2013 and the role, if any, of federal disaster assistance to cover both losses in 12 and potential losses ahead in 2013. And of course, the beef industry is always watching EPA as well, and wondering about the regulatory front there, concerned about a recent release of producer information as part of a Freedom of Information Act request. So a number of issues on the radar for the beef industry.
Let's talk about COOL, World Trade Organization and the COOL, the country of origin, country of origin labeling, had a little disagreement about what the U.S. would label or how it would label it. Give me the background of that.
We back up a decade to the 2002 Farm Bill, a very strong country of origin labeling package of legislation was proposed and was eventually implemented after the 2008 Farm Bill revised some of the regulations. The 2008 Farm Bill sort of helped streamline the implementation of what was originally proposed in 2002. Now, Canada filed a lawsuit in the WTO claiming that COOL was illegal. It violated trade rules. It harmed the Canadian beef industry. WTO agreed. Now, in the agreement, USDA has to either come up with a solution, a fix to the rule, or face potential retaliatory sanctions. USDA just announced their proposed fix to the country of origin labeling rule, and instead of, as some might have expected, helping to sort of streamline and ease the rule further to satisfy Canada, in fact, they reverted largely to some of the original legislation from 2002. Very stringent rules on what should be labeled and how. A much more costly implementation of COOL, if it is to go through, not clear yet whether that resolves the complaint with Canada.
Clear how it affects the producer? Is there a big impact?
It certainly could affect the producer. Instead of allowing the processing sector to essentially commingle livestock from multiple sources and then label the product as commingled, we return to what one of the original rules said, that says muscle cuts. Think steaks, roasts. They have to be labeled as to exactly where they were born, where they were raised, where they were processed. That means not only that does the label have to say more than it currently says, it means that the whole processing sector has to deal with much more segregation, and the production sector as well, much more segregation and record keeping than what they currently do.
Where do we stand with disaster assistance currently? That was a big topic last year during the drought. There was nothing in the Farm Bill that addressed that. We have a one-year extension of that Farm Bill. Where is it now?
Right now, we're still waiting for potential funding for disaster assistance. There was proposed disaster assistance in the Farm Bill proposals last fall. Obviously, those didn't go anywhere. And when the tax legislation, the fiscal cliff legislation, did address tax issues and included a one-year Farm Bill extension, it also technically included a reauthorization of disaster assistance retroactively for 12 and forward for 13 to cover those livestock losses like forage losses and indemnity or death losses. Unfortunately, that legislation was authorized, not funded. So here we are waiting on potential appropriations or waiting on a new final eventual Farm Bill that includes both authorization and funding before we can expect to see any disaster help for livestock producers.
And give me the disagreement now quickly between, well, maybe not between, but because of the EPA.
Well, of course, when the livestock industry is watching DC, they spend quite a bit of time watching USDA. They also spend quite a bit of time watching EPA. And when they watch EPA, they're looking at all these potential rules and the concern about the rules or the regulatory burden of those rules. Well, now they're also concerned about what, in essence, was an information release from EPA. EPA had gathered information from multiple animal feeding operations relative to some proposed regulations. Even when those proposed regulations were determined not to affect some of those operations, they already had that info on those operations, and through a Freedom of Information Act request, several environmental and interest groups basically took or asked for, requested, and received that information. So it's not that the information wasn't officially public once it was with EPA, but technically speaking, it was data that EPA didn't need to collect because these were operations that didn't fall under the purview of EPA. And now, once they have the data, now it's been released.